Okay, so for chapter 10, basically what you're still going to continue on with some more action scripting, and it's going to be a different setup in terms of your dimension size and some of the contents you'll be including in there. One of the key things here is going to be that you'll need to create other Swift type files. So you'll need to create other Flash files, and then it's going to be incorporated within your main project. So let me show you first what I mean, explain it, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So here's the main file, right, that you're going to be working with. You call it Portfolio 10 or whatever you want to call it. Then you'll have these other files in terms that you'll be creating, and you can use content from your previous content if you want to, from your previous portfolio, but you will need to create these external files. So what's going to happen is these external files right here, these external Swift files, are going to be loaded into this main file right here. So for instance, let me show you right here. If I double click on this, so this is the size of one of the files. Okay. Here's the other file. And here's another external file. Okay? So 3 different files, and eventually that's going to be part of this person's portfolio. So now here's the main file. So this is like some kind of portfolio, right? This is the home page type setup. So the idea is that you have your home page, you have a sample button where it's going to bring up different samples that you can click on and view. And then there's going to be a login section, okay, where you're going to actually log into and type in a password or something like that to log into a certain screen area. All right, so for instance, if I click on samples, remember the gear, right? If I click on the gear, it loads that external file. So this file right here was loaded externally. It wasn't part of the Swift file. It wasn't part of the main file. So when I click on Kirby, it loads Kirby there, and then this other one, the pony one, right? So it's loading all those individually. Then when I click on clients, it unloads those. When I click on each one of those files, what it essentially is doing is unloading those particular files. And then when I click on another button, any one of the other buttons, it also unloads those files. So now we're into this frame. When I clicked on clients, it went to this particular frame. So if I type in the wrong password, hit submit. Sorry, that's not correct. Please try again, blah, blah, blah. Click again. Now type in the correct password, which is in this case password. And click submit. Welcome to the client area. So this would be where you have a video or whatever kind of thing, or content or something like that. Now when I click back to samples, notice it in this case, it did not necessarily unload that. It just moved from one frame to the other, to this frame right here. And when I click on home, it goes to the home page, again to frame 1. So let's look at that now, how the setup is, how it's set up. So here's the main file again. So by the way, while we're waiting for this to come up, I want to remind you that in this case, it's going to be really important for this assignment that you put all your files in one folder so that it has access to those particular other files. If they're not there, if those files aren't there, they won't be able to grab it. So for instance, you'll notice again that here's the folder and all the files are within that folder. So the path to the files is important. If I were to create another folder here and I would put all these other files in there, I could also do that, but I just have to write the path correctly to that particular those particular files. Then eventually what you're going to do is you're going to take your file, your folder, where you're going to put all your files in there, and then zip it. So if you're on a Mac, you're going to right mouse click, and then select compress. And then when you select compress, notice it zips it. See this one, it says port 11, that's the second one. So that's what it just got zipped to. Okay, so you're going to, and then you're going to upload that file. That's the file that you're going to upload, not each individual files separately. You're going to upload it, just the zip file, after you zipped it up. If you're on a PC at home, you right mouse click, or wherever you are, you may be on a PC, you're still going to right mouse click, but there's going to be something that says send to, and then zip. Or I think it may say compress if you're on, I think, Windows 8. But anyway, keep that in mind. You need to zip it in order to upload it. All right, back to this. So as you can, this is the stage, right? And here we have our timeline. So if you'll notice the timeline here, you only see 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you only really need about 5 frames. Okay. And each of those frames has a different type of scenario. So again, frame 1 is your home scene. Frame 2 is where you're going to be where it's going to be loading the stuff. Notice the files are not here. Okay, they haven't been loaded. If you'll also notice, if I go to the library, they're not in the library also. So those Swift files are not in the library or already on stage. They exist as externally. And the reason you're learning how to do this is that by doing it this way, again, you're keeping this Swift file, the main Swift file, well compressed. So the size of this file is not so large. And unless you call up those particular files, then when you call them up, it'll load it onto the stage, and then when you click on another button, it will unload it. And this is a way that usually you'll, if you start creating games, that's how you're going to be actually setting up your game. You're going to be loading and unloading assets, audio, videos, Swift files, and so on. So that the game loads really quick, and it's just when you call up that particular item that you need on stage or object, then it loads it on there. Okay, so looking at the Actionscript real quick. There's something important I want you guys to notice here. In the Actionscript, you'll notice that on the first frame, basically you're creating a loader variable. Okay, so that you're going to create this variable so that you call it up to load those particular Swift files. Okay. I'll come back to this in a minute because I need to show you guys something. But you'll notice on frame 2, this is where you're calling it up on this line, load, and then you're using this instance name that you came up with on frame 1, my loader right here. So also you decided ahead of time where you're going to place that file in terms of your XY position. Okay. So then on frame 2, hold on a second, just want to put this over here. Dot, there we go. Nope. Why can't I get this to dock over there? Anyway, trying to dock it on there, it's not letting me do it. But as you can see, on frame 2, this is where where you click on each one of these buttons and it loads those Swift files. Notice the name of the Swift files right here. So if the path was different, I would just create, the path to that through this parameter, through these parameters right here. So again, here are the 3 different Swift files that will be loaded. And then when we go to frame 3, then you're going to use an if-else type of Actionscript setup to set up the password. Again, this is all in the book in terms of how to set that up. Now, the one thing that is not in the book is what's going on frame 3 here. And it's mostly this part right here. And then you'll notice that you'll use that for the home button, for the samples button and the login button. What this is doing is unloading. The book tells you to come up with a script to unload when you click on any one of those buttons. So you saw that when I clicked on that button, on the home button or the samples button, it unloaded that Swift file that was already loaded. But what happens, you could just type in this right here, this line right here, without the if type of setup. Then what would happen is that it would unload it, or in some cases, what would happen is that if you're not clicking on the home button and you go to the home page, and if it's not loaded, then it's going to give you an error. So what I told these guys to do before was to use the if statement, and then what is basically the way it goes is that if, then you're going to set up whether this is you set up the parameter in there, and what it's doing is checking to see if it's true. So what it's saying, if my loader, which you created on frame or line 7, so basically if this is true right here, so whatever you put in there in terms of a parameter, so what we're saying is check to see if this is true, if it's there. If it's there, then unload it. That's what line 15 is about. And then once we close it out, then we're telling it to go to frame 1 when you click on the home button, right? Same thing here. If my loader is there, then unload it and then go to frame 2 for the samples button, and so on and so on. Okay? So this part you won't see in the book. Well, it does talk about the conditional statement using the if statement, but not in regards to unloading this and setting it up so that it unloads and you don't get an error. So keep that in mind when you send this up for frame 1. Okay? All right. I think that's actually about it in terms of this project. Again, the key thing is here is that you're loading external files that you create separately. Okay? And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's going to make sure it fits within this area right here, or this area, whichever way you set up, it's up to you in terms of how you set it up. But you need, on frame 2, you need some blank white space area for your Swift file to load. And then you have to decide where your XY position is going to be so that it can be loaded on there. So you got to make sure you set all those things up. Any questions?